Good morning, people of the internet. You are listening to Debi Radio 79.5 FM, a podcast where we discuss the movie Grosse Pointe Blank 1 minute at a time. I am one of your hosts, Dev.
And I'm the other host, Hugh. And on today's show, we're looking at minute 55. So at this point, our lead character, Martin Q. Blank, played by John Cusack, is wrapping up his nighttime phone call in his hotel room in Grosse Pointe, Michigan, with his secretary slash quartermaster slash intelligence gatherer, whatever you want to call her, Marcella, who's back in Los Angeles, played by his sister, Joan Cusack. And we've just seen a very kind of moving, emotional moment in which there's some honesty between characters, which there clearly wasn't in previous minutes when he was on his date with Debbie. But now it's time for movement. Not exactly action, but definitely movement.
So, first of all, we see Martin crack open this case of his. We've seen the case before as he was sliding it into the event early on, and we kind of commented on something like the seeming realism of that as an act. And that's actually something that I've heard in interviews with Tom Yankovic, that was something that he was very mindful of with writing about a hitman, was trying to nail all of those points, and I think really testimony to that. So he cracks open this gun case, and it definitely has some handguns in it. It also has quite a variety of knives, and this is where I think there's a little tongue-in-cheek moment of just a little play on how he only has functional items, and he's not afraid of the latest technology, but he does, like, everything he has, it serves a purpose, because one of the things nestled in that case that we can see as he's closing the case is a Swiss Army knife. And who really needs to put their Swiss Army knife in a case?
Yeah, that would be like on your keyring or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is pre 9/11, right? So
yeah,
this is before there was intense scrutiny at airport security checkpoints, especially if you're flying domestically. Everybody in America, not everybody in America, but a lot of people in America carry a knife around with them, either a utility knife or a multi-purpose tool, or a folding knife, because it's not like it is in the UK, where that's illegal and it's an excuse for the cops to pull you up. But it's not something that needs to be concealed in a case that's designed to have all of your dangerous items concealed in. So I thought that was a little bit amusing, having that little flair.
It's very funny. It's a lovely little touch. Good on you for spotting it. I as somebody who's owned a Swiss Army knife of one sort or another since 1980 something, I totally get what you're saying. In Switzerland where I lived, it was great. Everybody had one, right? We're living in Switzerland, and then once I moved to England, I was like, oh, I need to leave that at home. So now it never travels with me, but I agree with you. I think it's just, again, this is where we push over into the satire, right? I mean, I was joking in a previous minute that I don't think he's brought any clothes. He's just got a bag full of hardware, and then of course this suitcase is just a suitcase full of hardware that falls out. But then, as you say, ironically, even a Swiss Army knife is packed in there. Like, oh yeah, just in case. It's ludicrous, but it's also a throwaway. It's not the main point of the shot. The fact, it's there for people like you and me who watch films again and again. We just happen to spot it, and the joke is in there. It's the literal in joke, which is cool.
I also quite like that, he folds open this case and he's got several handguns in there,
and several knives.
And the thing that he reaches for is just a knife, right? Like, not even the biggest knife that he has in there. It's like, this is, he's I'm not entirely sure what he's doing, just kind of.
I think he's trying to reassure himself.
I think so as well.
He's playing with the knife and the way he sort of strokes the blade, and it's like he's trying to remind himself and reestablish the assassin as opposed to the boyfriend or the ex, the ex boyfriend, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
and making sure everything is ready. I guess checking the sharpness, checking the point on it.
mm,
Um,
mm,
I don't know,
yeah.
but
I mean, he's a professional. We've said before he likes to, he clearly takes care of his kit. He likes to prepare. He likes to be ready for things.
yeah,
And this is, but at the same time, he's discombobulated by the way the conversation with Marcella has ended.
yeah, yeah.
Because she's deliberately misinterpreted something he said to paint a really what's the word I'm looking for? Not a downer note, but she wants to paint a morbid picture.
Yeah, yeah,
So, about the idea that we can all go at any time, kind of thing. Just to remind him about life and death and the
yeah,
thing they work in, the business they work in, but it applies to them too.
yeah.
And I think he's just feeling melancholy, really, I guess.
And then once he's closed up the case, we cut to him running across the yard of Debbie's parents' house, or Debbie's father's house.
Yeah, and
And
one of the things I like about it is that because we've just seen him messing around with his weapons, and because he's suddenly in a baseball cap and green windbreaker, you're kind of like, is he about to go on do the job finally?
yeah,
For a
yeah.
moment there, because we haven't seen this location
And the
at
music
this.
really speaks to that as well, right? It's this
Yeah.
kind of somewhat dramatic, intense, bum bump kind of like heartbeat style refrain that's playing as he's kind of running through the shadows across this yard.
Mm. Mm.
Um,
It's
and
hit
then
me always. So go.
oh, I was going to say, and then the juxtaposition as it cuts to the reggae music pumping out of Debbie's radio as we
Yeah.
see her inside.
The eternal uh, Anglophile, Britophile.
Yeah, yeah,
80s music nerd. Yeah, she really is his ideal girl in that sense. But yeah, there's also something there about the just thinking about the things with Marcella and Martin before this moment. It's just the the fact that all of this is happening, i.e., the reason the ghoul is in town is part of the deal to eliminate Martin because Martin screwed up and accidentally killed someone's dog.
right.
There is, I love the fact that not only does that get brought up again, but it's that overarching sense of irony that he might die because he messed up on a job and killed
Yeah,
someone's dog.
absolutely. It's yeah, I mean, I was going to save this for a later minute, but you raise a good point with the Boudreaux thing, right? Because
Mm.
we still don't fully know what that is, right? It's just like that Oregon affair with the dog called Boudreaux, and
That's the line, yeah.
and we get more infill later on, right? But this is one of those things that kept me rewatching the film because that is what Grocer is referencing in that initial conversation in LA, right after the hit where he takes out the cyclist, but Grocer's there as to still take out the person he's meant to be protecting.
Yeah.
In that sequence, Grocer's needling him with like knowing all about Oregon, knowing about the Pacific Northwest, all that mist and up there. And you don't really understand because he does so many weird facial tics and noises and things that the implication is he knows that it's a dog because he's barking, and then he does the kaboom and he knows the dog gets blown up. Spoiler alert. And none of that has been previously explained to you. You find out after the fact through this, and then through the breakfast date with Grocer that happens in a bit, how all of that comes to pass. And the idea of a film doing that to you not even for the main plot, right? This is not a plot twist. This is just everybody knows this except for the audience, and we don't feel like we
Right.
need to explain it to the audience. They'll figure it out later on, and then they
Right.
can. That is something that I don't see in films enough, right? Like, I mean, it was pretty much the entire premise of Memento, famously.
Yep.
But in this film, it's just a little throwaway piece where it's included that this exposition happens in reverse order, it doesn't really matter for anything, but it gives so much more depth and realism to the
Yeah.
story and to the characters that you're interacting with here for me.
I mean, there is something about the Naughty Onwards whereby we went from some things being throwaway and some things being explained to everything must be explained.
Yep.
And
I mean,
everything must be relevant or not at all.
yeah, Chekhov's gun has become the most important thing in movie storytelling, and to the detriment of the storytelling, I feel a lot of the time, right? Having
Mm-hmm.
those elements, having the, like, not even just red herrings, but just having additional depth and
Mm-hmm.
content, just to give you the feeling of everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's what helps sell a film like this, but also, like, much bigger, more impressive things, right? You
Mm-hmm.
got, you accidentally have them in the Lord of the Rings movies just because they end up cutting out elements of it.
Mm.
But there's still those fragments that, if you're familiar with the books, that those are parts of bigger stories, and they've been included out of love of the original sources. But
Mm. Yeah, with you on all of that. With you on all of that. So I think that's almost everything. I'm just thinking about
so
the
there's
run
a
up to the
couple.
house.
Yeah, there's a couple more things I wanted
Go
to
for it.
mention.
Go
So
for it.
so
Go for it.
one of them is this is an all brick house, which is
Okay.
not that common in the US. I mean, it's
Oh,
not unheard
really?
of.
Okay.
Uh, I mean, for me, on the West Coast, it is especially unlikely because brick houses and earthquakes are not good bedfellows for the people
Gotcha.
living inside them. Um, but even, I feel, on, in the Midwest, now on the East Coast, it's still less common to have a house made of brick, and I think it's just because practically it's significantly more expensive than a house made of wood.
It's very
Um,
English.
eh, yes, yeah, or at least colonial feeling
Yeah.
for sure.
But then
Um,
that fits with the mock Tudor thing we
yeah,
saw earlier when Piven's character was trying to
yeah,
sell.
and the other piece of it is, concrete construction and more modern construction methods, which are also cheaper, have kind of
Mm.
taken over, right? So if you're going to
Mm.
build a house, like, would you build it out of red brick or would you build it out of breeze blocks, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's just very, very striking to see a residential house in particular that's kind of built of red brick like this. And I think is another one of those things that kind of indicates just how well off Debbie's father is, that this beautiful, gorgeous grand house is all brick. Um,
Is it me, or
and
does he also pass like some sort of outdoor area as well? I mean, they have a big garden. There's like space. There's fencing.
yeah,
There's a place to hang out. Not quite a
yeah,
gazebo kind of thing, but there's yeah, wealth is very very visible, but in a very very subtle way. Like the camera moves
right,
quickly enough that if you're not looking for the second time or third time, or in your case the 42nd time,
yeah,
you're not going to notice.
yeah. And we mentioned this when Paul is showing off the house to Martin, right, as they drive past.
Mm,
It's a very impressive house.
mm,
It's also a house that's been used in numerous other films, but
mm.
there is that sense that it's it is affluent, and every element of the scenes kind of sells that. Um, and then the last thing I wanted to talk about was the secret knock, like the knocking on the
Okay.
window, knocking on the frame, knocking on the doorpost. Um, like, it's so obvious that, or it instantly tells you that this is something that he used to do as a kid when he was sneaking over.
Yep.
You instantly get that impression, and the way that Debbie jumps out of bed
Yep.
and rushes over, she knows exactly who it is, right? No one else
Yep.
will go to the back door. No one else will knock in that way. She knows who it is, and it was just such a nice little touch.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then it's yet again one of those things that shows you he has not left Grosse Pointe behind.
Yeah,
In
absolutely. He still remembers, and I
yeah.
think that, and her feeling of excitement there, I think, is that's the moment where she wants to think of him as the Martin she remembered, rather than maybe the Martin that he is now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's fair. I think that's a very very good point. And there's so many ways they could have shot that scene. And I imagine they shot more than one version, but to have her as you say, dash off the bed, and the camera just turns and lets her walk. You see her go through the doorway into the sort of hall area or whatever it is. As opposed to keeping on her face, it's all in her body language. It's the excitement, and she practically dances.
Yeah. I was thinking the only thing that's missing is her just doing that slide across the floor to the door.
Right.
That you know she would have been doing as a kid, and she's not that kid anymore, so she's not doing that, but she wants to.
Oh yeah. And at the same time, we know that she's still wary of Martin, right? Like, still very wary.
And I think this is the moment where that goes away. And
you think?
And I think next week's minutes will tell us more about that. But yes, I think this is the moment where it goes away.
Okay.
For now, it comes crashing back hard on in a little while. But
true, but it'll be a while before that.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. Shall we call it there?
Let's do it.
This was minute 55 of the Grosse Pointe Blank podcast, Debi Radio 79.5 FM, featuring your co-hosts, co-writers, and co-producers, Dev Sodergar and myself, Hugh David.
Today's guest was nobody. It has just been the two of us today and yesterday. I kind of want to leave that in. I'm going to not. I'm going to start again.
It's fine. No, leave it in.
If you would like to find us, you can find us on all good podcast players, presumably like the one you're listening to us to. But if you're normally an Apple podcast listener and you've been struggling to find us on there, we are now live on there, despite Apple's best efforts to make that virtually impossible. You can also find us on YouTube, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Spotify as @Debi Radio, and on our website, debiradio.com. And for all of those, as always, it is Debi, spelt DEBI. Radio.
And finally, if you want to come and chat with us, find us at the Facebook listeners group, Debi Radio 79.5 FM Fan Club.
Sure was clear that all of this was new. Concentrating hard like a little girl, smoking for the first time.